Picture two households. The first one drives a 10-year-old Honda Civic, packed lunch, no logo on anything. The neighborhood is fine, the house is a bit smaller than most on the block, and the weekend looks quiet. The second household drives a leased German SUV, coffee shop order every morning, recent kitchen renovation, trip booked, wardrobe that says something. By any surface read, that is the prosperous one. Here is the part most people get wrong. The Honda household is running a machine. Every ordinary choice feeds it raw material, the gap between what comes in and what goes out. That gap does not sit there. It compounds, it multiplies, and the machine's output is not more stuff. The machine's output is free time. The leased SUV household might be earning more, but the machine is idle because everything that goes in comes right back out. I'm Neo. This is Modern Wealth, and today we are going to take apart that machine, what it runs on, what turns the dial, and exactly when it hands you a Tuesday morning with no alarm. Let's reset the framing first, because the common version of this story gets told wrong. The usual version says, rich people look broke because they hide their money, stealth wealth, the secret millionaire next door. That framing puts the emphasis on appearances, on what you're not showing, but that is the wrong lesson. The interesting question is not what wealthy people look like, it is what they are doing with the gap between earning and spending. About 24 million Americans qualify as millionaires today. Rough math, roughly 1 in 15 adults. Put 30 people in a coffee shop and statistically 2 of them are there. They do not announce themselves, not because they are performing humility, but because the machine does not care how you look. It only runs on one thing, the retained gap multiplied by time. Income is loud, wealth is quiet, and they are not the same thing.
The machine's raw material is every ordinary choice that keeps the gap open. Let's go through the main ones because the numbers are specific and they matter. The average new car in 2025 costs just over $50,000. The average monthly payment, around $770. More than 1 in 5 buyers push that payment past $1,000 a month. And the loan terms have stretched. 7-year car loans are now common. Think about what a 7-year, $1,000 a month car commitment actually does to a household over time. That is not a car. That is a recurring drain on the machine's feedstock for nearly a decade. The people running the machine have a different logic. A rough rule of thumb, spend around 1% of your net worth on your car. A $2 million household is comfortable in a $20,000 Toyota or Honda, driven until it is actually worn out. The car is transportation. It is not a statement. New cars have shifted behavior. They have become a product that high earners buy as a visible signal of income. But buying a $55,000 vehicle on a $95,000 income is not a wealth move, it is a gap closing move, and a closed gap means idle machine. The same logic scales up. Buy smaller than you can technically afford. Every extra bedroom is not just a bigger mortgage payment, it is a compounding drag. More property tax, more insurance, more utilities, more furniture, more maintenance, and capital trapped in a bigger asset that could be doing other work. The real cost of a house is not the sticker, it is the annual bleeding of the machine's output across all the hidden overhead. The wealthy household, more often than not, is not in the biggest house on the block. The richest person in a room says the least about money. This is almost a cliche by now, but the mechanism underneath is real. When your financial identity does not depend on what strangers think of you, you do not have to signal income with logos. No logo clothing, understated, the machine does not care. U.S. credit card balances cross $1.2 trillion, with carried balance interest running around 22%. The people running the machine use cards, they just wipe them clean every cycle. No interest, no drag. The car is a tool, the balance stays zero.
Cash parked in a high-yield account is also a quiet input. At around 4%, $20,000 in a high-yield savings account earns roughly $800 a year. That same $20,000 at the average bank rate of 0.38% earns about $76. At a 0.01% account, it earns $2. That is a difference of $798 a year. Not transformative by itself, but it shows up across everything. Here is the feedstock multiplier most people underuse. The tax-advantaged account system is essentially the government agreeing to step aside and let your machine run faster. In 2026, the contribution limits look like this: 401k up to $24,500, IRA up to $7,500, HSA individual $4,400,
HSA family, $87.50. When you include employer match, the combined space available in a well-structured situation can approach $72,000 a year. Most people are not close to that ceiling, but the direction matters. Autopilot beats willpower. Set it to max, route the contribution before the paycheck lands in checking, and you never decide to spend it. The compounding math is worth keeping. If you max a 401k at a 7% average annual return across 30 years, you can land near $2.5 million. The machine does not need clever investing decisions to get there. Consistent inputs into tax-advantaged accounts, index funds, 30 years. This is where the mechanism becomes precise. Everything we just covered, the car, the house, the invisible accounts, the cash, those are the feedstock. But there is a dial on the machine, and that dial has a readout that tells you exactly when you stop working. The dial is your savings rate. Here is the table that makes this real. It comes from working through the math of how long a sustained savings rate takes to reach financial independence, defined roughly as enough invested to support your spending indefinitely. Savings rate, 10%, years to freedom, about 51 years. Savings rate 25%, years to freedom, about 32 years. Savings rate 50%, years to freedom, about 17 years. Savings rate 65%, years to freedom, about 10.5 years. Savings rate 75%, years to freedom, about 7 years. Read that table slowly. Going from 10% to 25%, from saving $1.10 to $1.04 buys back 19 years of your life. Going from 10% to 20%, just doubling the rate, buys back roughly 14 years. And notice what is not on that table: salary. Income is not the column. The savings rate is the column. Two people at the same income, one saving 10% and one saving 25%, will reach the same asset target 16 to 19 years apart. That gap is not luck. It is the dial. Why does the savings rate move things so far?
Because spending less hits the machine twice. First, more money flows into the machine. Second, your lifetime financial target, the amount you need invested to support you indefinitely, goes down when your spending goes down. Lower spending means a smaller number to fund, and a smaller target, reached faster with higher savings, collapses the timeline. Once the machine has been running long enough, you need to know the conversion. How much invested translates to how much spending covered. The standard reference is the 4% rule. Your annual spending multiplied by 25 equals your target portfolio. If you spend $50,000 a year, you need $1.25 million invested. At 4% drawdown annually, a diversified portfolio historically supports indefinite withdrawals over a standard retirement horizon. For earlier exits, people stopping before 60, looking at a 35 or 40-year drawdown period, the math shifts slightly. A more conservative mental model pushes the withdrawal rate toward 3.5%, which means your target is closer to 30 times annual spending instead of 25. Slightly higher target, slightly more margin against a long run. High market valuations at the time of exit also push this number. The logic is that future returns from an elevated starting point may be softer. The savings rate still moves the outcome by decades either way. The exact multiplier matters at the edges. The savings rate is the engine. There are exactly 3 ways to turn the dial faster. Earn more. Higher income gives the machine more feedstock, provided the spending does not rise with it, and that is the trap. Lifestyle creep is the machine killer. A raise absorbed into a bigger apartment, a nicer car, a larger dining out budget, that raise does not turn the dial. It keeps the savings rate flat. The machine stays idle even as income climbs. Spend less. This hits both sides simultaneously. More input, smaller target. It is the most direct lever. Invest the gap. Boring broad index funds, inside tax-advantaged accounts, sequenced, 401k to employer match, HSA, IRA, taxable brokerage. Not picking stocks, not timing, not optimizing. Just routing the gap into the machine on autopilot every month. Hedonic adaptation is the silent antagonist. After every upgrade, bigger apartment, nicer car, more streaming services, it starts to feel normal within about 3 months. Then the old baseline feels insufficient, and the lifestyle floor has shifted up. The machine loses feedstock, and nobody notices because it happened gradually.
The discipline is not a single big decision. It is resisting the automatic expansion every time income rises. There is an honest thing to say about compounding in the first decade. It is slow, painfully slow. Year 3, the balance is small. Year 6, it looks like it will never be enough. Year 9, something starts. Around year 12, the machine starts doing real work. The snowball reaches the part of the hill where the slope matters. The interest is earning interest that is earning interest. The pile adds mass each year on its own. This is where most people get off the machine. They set it up, they contribute, they watch it move slowly for several years, and they make a decision that seems rational in the moment. Redirect some of that money into a current upgrade, the car upgrade, the house upgrade, something tangible. That redirect has a cost that does not show up on a receipt. Every dollar redirected out of the machine at year 6 is not just that dollar. It is $10 to $15 that dollar would have become by year 25. The early years feel cheap. They are not. They are the most expensive dollars on the timeline. One objection that comes up when people run these savings rate numbers is, but I cannot touch that money until I'm 65. This is not accurate. There are several early access paths for people who reach financial independence before traditional retirement age. The Roth conversion ladder. Convert traditional IRA or 401k dollars to a Roth IRA in low-income years, years right after leaving work, before drawing Social Security. Pay income tax at that year's rate, and then after 5 years, access the converted principal tax-free and penalty-free. 72T distributions. A specific IRS rule that allows penalty-free withdrawals before 59.5 if you take substantially equal periodic payments based on your life expectancy. Lock-in required, but it opens the account. Roth contribution access. Money you contribute directly to a Roth IRA, not the earnings, but the contributions, can be withdrawn at any age without tax or penalty. After years of contributing, that is a meaningful buffer. And a less discussed point. Before 65, your taxable income matters more than your net worth for access to health insurance subsidies. A household with $1.5 million invested but low withdrawals may qualify for significant marketplace subsidy. This is not a gimmick. It is part of the math. Here is what the machine actually produces. It is not the Honda. The Honda is just a choice. It is not the packed lunch. That is just Tuesday.
The machine produces a Tuesday with no alarm, no meeting you have to be in, no project you are required to show up for because someone else will write the review. The ability to stop performing the appearance of productivity and actually spend the time on whatever it is you actually want to do. Wealth's real output is flexibility and freedom, the ability to say no, to take the opportunity that came at the wrong time, to be available when something important happens, to not have a number on the wall that tells you when you are allowed to leave. This is not about early retirement in the sense of doing nothing. Most people who reach this point do not stop working. They shift to working on things that actually interest them, for reasons other than necessity. The difference between required and chosen is the whole product. A few grounding points before we close. A 50% savings rate is easier at higher income. This is honest. The math is the same, but the minimum cost of living takes a smaller percentage of a larger check. Lower income households have less room to dial. The approach still applies, but not from a 50% floor. The practical entry point is figure out your current savings rate, then find one dial turn that can raise it, not dramatically, just 5 points. If you are at 10%, moving to 15% buys back years. The machine does not need a dramatic reset. It needs consistent feedstock over a long timeline. The account sequencing. Employer 401k match first, because that is free feedstock. Then HSA if available, triple tax advantaged, widely misunderstood as a healthcare product when it is actually a long-term wealth account, then IRA, then taxable brokerage. The investment choice inside those accounts, broad index funds, lowest cost broad market funds inside the tax advantage shell on autopilot. This is not the interesting part. The interesting part is the savings rate. One more thing. The machine works whether or not you find it interesting. You do not need to enjoy personal finance. You do not need to track every line item. You need the gap, you need it routing into the machine automatically, and then you need to let it run. The No Alarm Tuesday is already being manufactured. The only question is how long the machine has been running. Let me leave you with the simplest version of what we covered.
There is a machine. It runs on the retained gap between what you earn and what you spend. every ordinary-looking choice that keeps that gap open, the smaller car, the smaller house, the invisible accounts, the cash earning real yield, the debt cleared monthly, is feedstock. The savings rate is the dial, and the dial has a readout that maps directly to a date. Not a retirement date in the traditional sense, a freedom date, the date the machine has produced enough that working becomes optional. That Honda, that packed lunch, those are not symbols of missing out. They are the machine at work. And the machine does not make noise. It just mints free time, quietly, while everything else continues to look ordinary. I'm Neo. This is Modern Wealth. If this one landed for you, share it with someone who needs to see the machine.